Hey y'all, it's Brandy. I am back with another video. In this one, I'm going to be going over how to use layers in Procreate for beginners. So before we get started, let me just quickly explain how layers work. I like to think of layers as you're putting pieces of paper one on top of the other. And so whenever you do something on one layer, it doesn't affect your other layers. So this is a really nice feature for digital artists, and I think it's worth learning to use because it can be a really helpful resource for you. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna be going over today. So to start, we are gonna go in the upper right-hand corner. You're gonna select the layers menu in Procreate, and you'll see that there is a layer 1, and then there's also a background color layer. I don't really use the background color layer much at all. You can use this to change the color of your canvas, but you can't actually draw on it. So we're gonna just ignore it for now. So to add a layer, you just hit the little plus icon, and the number of layers that you can create just depends on your canvas size. So if you have a really large canvas, you can only have a few layers. So just keep that in mind when you're making your canvases. And yeah, so the first thing I want to show you guys is layer modes. So to access your layer modes, you're going to hit the little N on the layer that you have selected, and it's going to pull up a menu full of different layer modes. To be honest, for beginners, you really don't need that many of these. There's really only two that I would suggest that you'll actually use other than the normal layer. And that is, the first one is multiply and the other one is overlay. So I'm going to talk more about these in a little bit. But first I want to show you the multiply layer, which is at the very top of the list. So you'll see a lot of artists use the multiply layer for shadows and shading in their artwork. Another cool thing that you'll see a lot of artists do with multiply is they'll set their line work to multiply, and this helps blend in the colors of the line art with the colors underneath. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. So I've got my line art and my sketch. And as you can see, it's kind of hard to see my line work because my sketch is the same opacity. So I'm going to change the opacity of my sketch so that you can see my line art really clearly. So to do that, I'm going to go to the same place where I selected my layer mode. You'll see there's a bar that you can move the opacity. So I'm going to move the opacity of my sketch layer all the way down to about like 20%. And you can pick whatever number your heart desires. It doesn't have to be anything specific, just as long as you can see your line art really well. And speaking of the line art, I wanted to show you guys how you can change the color of your line art by using something called alpha lock. So alpha lock basically locks your layer so that no new paint strokes can go on it. So for example, let me show you if I tried coloring my line art red without having it locked, this is what it would look like. Obviously that's not what we want, so I need to lock the layer. I'm going to select the layer that I want to lock, and then there's going to be a menu. When I click on the layer, there's going to be a menu that pops up, and there's a option that says alpha lock. I'm going to select that, and now whenever I color my line art, it's only affecting the lines that are already there. This is a really easy way to make changes to different colors without affecting anything else but what you already have. So next I want to show you what it looks like when you set your line art to multiply. So first I'm going to color my line art red again, and then I'm going to set my line art layer to multiply. So again, you'll hit that little N, and then the multiply layer is at the very top. And just to show you guys the difference, here is the layer in a normal mode, and then here is the layer set to multiply. So you can see that the line art, the red from the line art, is actually blending in and darkening with some of the colors. So the next thing I want to show you guys that you can do with layers is something called clipping mask. I think a lot of people kind of confuse this with alpha lock. It is a little bit different. and you can kind of use it in different ways. So for clipping mask, what you do is basically, instead of locking that layer and only coloring what's in that same layer, clipping mask, you actually put a layer above the layer that you're working on, and you'll color on a separate layer, but you'll mask it, you'll clip it to the layer beneath it so that it only stays within the layer below. So to show you that, I've taken this cat and blocked it in with a random color. I'm going to create a new layer on top, and I'm going to set it to clipping mask. So the way I do this is the same way for alpha lock. You'll have the layer selected, and then you click on it. There will be a menu pop up, and you're going to select clipping mask. And then it's going to clip it to the layer that's immediately below it. So let's say that I wanted to add stripes to this cat. I could do that on this clipping mask layer. It'll only color within the layer below it. So you'll see a lot of people use clipping masks whenever they are using like a multiply layer mode for their shadows. The last thing I want to show you guys is how to group layers. To group a layer, all you do is have the layer selected, and then you're going to swipe to the right with your finger. And then you'll select whatever layers you want to group. And then up in the top right-hand corner, there will be an option to group them. So this is really helpful to keep things organized. It also is really helpful if you need to move multiple things that are on different layers. So you can take your selection tool and move the whole group. So earlier I said that a lot of people use multiply and overlay to create shadows in their artwork or lighting for their artwork. So I thought I would just show you guys real quick how that might look. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to set it to overlay, and depending on what color you use, it will create a different effect. I know a lot of people tend to use like a bluish, like a light blue for overlay lighting, and then they'll use like a purple for their multiply layer for shadows. That doesn't necessarily work in every situation, but I think for a beginner artist, I think that's a good place to start. But I definitely recommend just trying different things and seeing what you like and dislike, and kind of creating your own style and sense of what you think looks good. But that's just like a quick suggestion if you're just starting out. And yeah, so that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!